The hole was exactly the same every morning, and Paul had filled it 63 times. At dawn, he'd pack the dirt back in, telling himself tonight would be different.
She's at it again. Same spot, same rhythm. 2 months now.
Morning after morning, the hole reappeared. Paul's patience wore thin.
Patron, you need to see her leg. She's been digging all night, pawing like a dog possessed.
I know. I filled the hole again this morning. She'll open it again tonight.
But the cycle continued. Each morning the hole reappeared, and then the mare came up lame.
This isn't just a habit. It's a wound. A wound that won't heal until I dig.
That afternoon, Paul went to the shed and took the long-handled shovel he used for post holes. He walked across the pasture, Noche trailing him. The mare's ears were pricked, as if she'd been waiting. Paul drove the shovel into the loose soil, each heave digging deeper into the spot Noche had chosen. 4 feet down, the blade struck something solid, a hollow thunk that stopped him cold.
That's wood. Not a rock, not a root. Something buried.
He dropped to his knees and clawed the dirt away, revealing a small carved wooden box, a corked bottle, and a wrapped bundle. With trembling hands, he lifted the box free of the earth. It was heavier than it looked.
Something inside this box. Something that has been waiting here a very long time.
He eased the lid open. Inside, gold rings caught the dying light, stacked beside a leather-bound diary and an old photograph.
Gold bands, worn thin. A diary with yellowed pages, and a photograph, faded but still sharp. Someone buried this like a grave. Why?
The bottle and the oilcloth bundle still lay in the hole, waiting. Paul didn't move. Paul lifted the photograph from the box and held it to the golden light. 2 men stared back at him.
That's my father, 40 years younger. The other man's eyes hold something I can't read.
On the back, in a fine, slanted script, Joshua, May 1957. The name stirred a ghost of memory.
Joshua, the uncle who vanished before my birth. No one ever spoke of him after that.
He opened the diary. The handwriting was the same. Entries pleaded with a brother over land and betrayal. The last entry, dated May 12, 1957, was barely legible. I fear my brother will silence me for good.
Silence him? What did my father do to his own brother?
Paul closed the diary, his chest tight. The truth was pressing against the lid of the past.
That bottle and bundle. I need to know, but I am not sure I want to.
He remained there, the bottle still buried in the dirt. Noche watched him from the fence, ears forward. His hand closed around the bottle's neck. The cork was still tight after all these years. He worked the cork free and tipped the bottle. A folded sheet slipped out, yellow as bone. I, Roberto Vargas, confessed to the murder of my brother Joshua, May 12, 1957. Over land he would not surrender. I shot him and buried him in the back pasture.
My father wrote this. My father killed his own brother.
The letter slipped from his fingers. He did not pick it up. Then his eyes fell on the oilcloth bundle, still half buried. He tugged it free. Inside, a small revolver. One spent shell in the cylinder.
The weapon that ended Joshua's life. Here, in my hands.
The truth lay bare in the dirt. A letter, a gun, and a diary. Paul's childhood memories turned to ash.
I have to call the sheriff and Mateo, but I need a minute to breathe.
Paul picked up his phone and dialed the sheriff's number. His voice came out steadier than his hands.
Sheriff Ruiz, it's Paul Vargas. Get to the estancia. Back pasture. I found something that can't wait.
He ended the call and dialed his brother. The phone rang 4 times before a groggy voice answered.
Mateo, don't ask questions. Just come to the back pasture. It's about Uncle Joshua. Entries I missed before. My father demanded his land. The threats were right there in ink, page after page.
Joshua had written about a meeting with their father and a lawyer, a paper he refused to sign. Headlights cut through the dusk. Sheriff Ruiz stepped out of the patrol car, one hand on his belt.
Over here, Sheriff. This is what my mare dug up after 2 months of worrying a single spot.
The sheriff knelt, flashlight in hand, scanning the box, the bottle, and the revolver. His face tightened.
Mateo is on his way. When he sees this, the family will fracture.
Headlights again. Mateo's truck stopped at the fence. He walked toward Paul, his face a mask of controlled anger.
Paul, what have you done? The sheriff at the estancia at night. Explain yourself.
I found the truth, Mateo. A confession, a weapon, and a diary, all belonging to Uncle Joshua. He didn't disappear. He was murdered.
That's ancient history. Our father built this ranch. You'd tear it all down over a horse's digging.
Read the letter. That's Father's handwriting. He killed his own brother over land. It's all there.
Mateo grabbed the paper. His lips moved as he read, then his face drained of color.
No, it's a lie. Father couldn't have, could he?
Sheriff Ruiz held the letter beside the diary. The handwriting matches, Mateo. I've seen enough to believe it. Mateo sank to his knees in the dirt. The walls of a lifetime of denial crumbled in a single exhale. The sheriff called for a forensic team. In the tense silence, both brothers knew nothing would be the same. The brothers took Paul's truck down the dark lane to their mother's cottage. The letter lay folded on the dashboard, heavier than stone.
Mama, we need to talk about dear Joshua. We found something you need to see.
Elena's hands trembled as she unfolded the confession. Her lips moved silently over the words her husband had written in 1957.
I knew. All these years, I knew what Roberto did. He said he would kill you both if I ever told.
Mother, where is he? Where is Joshua's body?
In the back pasture. He buried him there, along with a box of things he couldn't bear to keep. I wanted to tell you. Every day I wanted to tell you, but the fear never left me.
Paul knelt and wrapped his arms around his mother's thin shoulders. She sobbed into his jacket like a child confessing a nightmare.
All the stories I believed. Father was not a builder. He was a destroyer.
Tomorrow, the dig would begin. Tonight, the family sat in a small house, weeping over a truth finally spoken. By noon the next day, a forensic van was parked by the pasture gate. White-suited technicians set up floodlights around the hole. Paul and Mateo stood 100 yards back, neither speaking. The excavation began with slow, deliberate cuts into the soil. An hour passed. Then a technician raised a gloved hand. Under the beam, a human bone gleamed in the dirt. More bones emerged, ribs, a skull with dark hair still clinging. The smell of damp earth and old decay filled the air.
That's a human skull with a bullet hole, consistent with a small caliber weapon. Preliminary ID matches Joshua Vargas.
Words will not come. My throat is a closed fist.
All the years we honored a stranger. Now this.
The brothers stood motionless as the technicians carefully exposed the full skeleton. The past had a body now. Paul's face was ashen. He could not blink. He had gone silent, as the title promised. The floodlights burned through the night. By dawn, the hole had become a grave with a name. The local paper ran the headline before Paul said a word. Verdad enterrada. Familia Vargas confronts 1957 murder. He called the press to the estancia gate. Microphones and cameras crowded the dusty road.
My father, Roberto Vargas, murdered my Uncle Joshua in 1957 and buried him in the back pasture.
The silence that followed was deeper than night.
Half of this estancia will go to Joshua's children. They deserve what was stolen from him. A monument will stand where my mare dug. It is the least we can offer a murdered soul.
Journalists shouted. Each answer came deliberate, without deflection.
My mother knew and was threatened. The blame falls on my father and the silence my family kept.
Mateo stood beside him, shoulders squared, a silent second pillar of accountability. The conference dissolved, but the legal transfer of land had already begun. Workers hauled a granite stone into the pasture and set it over the exact spot the mare had clawed. The plaque read, Joshua Vargas, 1921 to 1957. Buried by silence, unearthed by truth. A week later, Joshua's children arrived at the estancia. The two brothers stood at the gate to greet them.
You are Joshua's son and daughter. I am Paul, your cousin. I am sorry.
He opened his palm and offered the gold rings. They lay in his hand like a tiny grave. The woman, Joshua's daughter, took them. Tears spilled down her face without a sound.
He wore these. Your father. I wish I could have known him.
Joshua's daughter stepped forward and pulled Paul into an embrace. 50 years of separation collapsed. From the fence line, Noche stood watching, her ears forward, as if she understood the end of her task. The monument stood under the afternoon sun, casting a shadow toward the house. The family was no longer split. After the visitors left, Paul sat alone by the monument. The sky burned orange, and the pasture was silent. He thought of Noche, born on this very land 20 years ago. She'd run these fields as a foal.
She was born here. Maybe she felt the weight in the earth we all ignored for 65 years.
That evening, he opened a notebook he hadn't touched in years. The pen felt heavy.
The first line came before I could stop it.
He wrote the title across the top of the page, La Yegua que no olvidó. Outside, Noche grazed beside the new stone as if she had claimed it. Page after page, the truth poured out about his father, his uncle, and the horse who dug until justice surfaced.
She waited 63 nights. I only needed one shovel. The real digging had been happening inside me all along.
The memoir was taking shape, but the final chapter would wait for the mayor's own last story. Months later, the manuscript was complete. Paul typed the final period and sat back. A small publisher in the city took it on. The first copies arrived at the estancia in a cardboard box.
They wanted a mystery. They got a confession. This book is my family's apology in ink.
La Yegua que no olvidó became the phrase on everyone's lips, from the local market to the capital. Noche, now 21, stood still for every photograph, the monument behind her like a punctuation mark. She'd been digging for justice. Now she simply stood, and that was enough.
Never be afraid of the truth, even if it sleeps under your feet for 60 years.
The memoir sold not by scandal, but by sorrow and hope. The mayor's silhouette appeared on mugs, posters, and even a small bronze statue the town commissioned. The last chapter, though, remained outside in the pasture, waiting for a different kind of ending. 10 years after the press conference, Elena Vargas died in her sleep, a letter under her pillow.
She was a prisoner of fear longer than I was alive. I forgive her.
The service brought together two families once split by blood and silence. Now one, Noche, 26, stood on the hill beyond the graves. Gray muzzle, slow steps, still watching.
She's the last one who remembers the digging. She carries the story in her bones.
By afternoon, Joshua's grandchildren chased each other around the monument, their laughter carrying across the pasture.
I never thought this land could feel like home again. Now it does.
We buried a secret and unearthed a family. The mayor knew before we did.
The monument glowed in the last light. The estancia hummed with voices that had once been forbidden. The mayor's story was not yet finished, but the people around her had been made whole. 2 years later, on a quiet morning, Noche lay down in the pasture and did not rise.
She lived 28 years. She dug for 63 nights and righted a wrong buried since 1957.
He sat with her for hours, the monument just yards away as if she'd chosen her spot.
You never spoke, but you told the truth. You never stopped. Thank you, Noche.
By sunset, the backhoe had dug a grave beside the monument. Paul insisted on lowering her himself. He filled the hole with shovel after shovel of earth, the last act of a rancher for his mare.
63 mornings. I filled a hole she dug. Now, I fill one she gave me. This one will stay.
He placed a small wooden cross at the head of the mound, carved with her name. Noche, la yegua que no olvidó. The monument to Joshua and the cross for Noche stood side by side in the pasture, two sentinels of memory. The memoir had its final chapter now, and the mare who dug for truth had her rest. On a still morning, Paul carried the last copy of his memoir to the monument. The pasture was lush again, the scar of the digging long healed. He set the book at the base of the stone, next to a small vase of wildflowers. Some truths stay buried for half a century, waiting for a creature who cannot speak to dig them free. That morning, Joshua's grandchildren had placed fresh flowers on Noche's grave, small hands pressing the earth. Inside the ranch house, the memoir rested on the mantel, its spine facing the window like a silent sentinel. The golden letters read, La yegua que no olvidó. It meant the mare who didn't forget, and in the pasture, the monument and the cross stood together, the long silence finally at peace, a piece that had begun with a hole, and a horse who would not stop digging. Years folded into decades, and the memoir remained on the shelf, its pages worn from countless hands. The estancia thrived under shared stewardship, the Vargas name no longer a whisper of shame but a testament to repair. Paul and Mateo grew old together on the porch, their chairs angled toward the monument, as if in unspoken vigil.
I still dream of her digging. In the dream, I never stop her. I just watch.
We spent 30 years not speaking of Joshua, and then a horse forced us to. Strange, isn't it?
The monument and the cross endured seasons of rain and sun, but they never stood alone. Generations of children, Vargas and Joshua's line both, learned the story before they could read. La yegua que no olvidó. The phrase entered the local lexicon, a shorthand for impossible persistence. And on quiet mornings when the fog clung to the pasture, you could almost see her, a black silhouette, ears forward, still digging, not out of instinct, but out of love. A love that refused to let the dead stay buried in the dark. Paul, 92, sat alone by the monument, a blanket over his knees, watching the sun climb the Andes.
Every day I sit here, and every day the grass grows thicker. The hole is a memory even the earth has forgiven.
The granite stone still stood, firm as the day it was placed. Next to it, Noche's cross remained, softened by moss.
You two, side by side. A man who lost his life, and a horse who gave mine back.
The memoir was in its 10th printing, its words translated into 4 languages, yet the story never felt finished, because every year, on the anniversary of the digging, someone new would arrive at the pasture gate, holding a copy. They would trace the inscription, touch the cross, and simply stand there, absorbing the quiet that Noche had broken. Paul watched them all. Strangers become pilgrims, bearing the truth he had almost buried under routine.
A hole, a box, a letter, a gun, and 63 nights of a mare's faith. That's what saved us.
The light shifted, and the shadow of the cross fell across the monument, joining the two forever.
The shadow has joined them. It's almost time for me to join them too, I think.
That evening, he asked to be wheeled out one last time. The stars were beginning to puncture the velvet sky.
Joshua, Noche, you've held the truth long enough. Let me hold it with you now.
A breeze stirred the grass as his hand fell still. The mare's cross seemed to lean closer. By morning, his chair was empty. A single white flower rested on its seat, left by unseen hands. They buried him beside his brother's stone, with the wooden cross watching over both. The 3 markers became a triptych: murder unearthed, loyalty rewarded, and the man who bridged both. La yegua que no olvidó became a touchstone, its final chapter handwritten into the land itself. Generations would walk that pasture, never knowing the dark silence that once reigned, only the story of the horse who broke it. And on certain mornings, when the fog lifts, you can still see her silhouette, ears forward, paw poised, forever digging. The estancia opened its gates each spring for a day of remembrance. Children came by the busload, hands full of wildflowers. A teacher stood by the plaque and read the last lines of Paul's memoir aloud, her voice carrying across the grass. The hole was exactly the same every morning, and Paul had filled it 63 times. The children, born decades after the crime, listened as if the story were their own, because it was. A young girl stepped forward and placed a yellow flower on Noche's cross. She whispered something no one could hear. The land itself seemed to hold the memory, the grass greener where Noche had pawed, the soil softer where Joshua had lain. La yegua que no olvidó was no longer just a book or a phrase. It was a law of the estancia. No secret would survive on this ground. The earth itself had learned to breathe truth, and on nights when the moon hung low, visitors swore they could hear a soft pawing, steady as a heartbeat, not a ghost, but a promise that some loves dig deeper than death and keep digging until the world is set right. The descendants of Joshua and Paul ran the estancia side by side, their children playing in the shadow of the monument. The memoir was translated, taught in schools, a testament to the power of one horse's persistence. On the anniversary, the family gathered, not to mourn, but to celebrate the truth. They would read from the book, and then a young rider would lead a black horse around the pasture. The horse, always a mare, would stop at the monument, as if paying respects. The land flourished, its soil enriched by the bones and the honesty. And the phrase La yegua que no olvidó became a proverb. Never forget what the earth remembers. There, in that quiet corner of Argentina, a hole had become a holy ground. Because one mare refused to stop digging, an entire family was unearthed, forgiven, and reborn. The monument stood, the cross weathered, and the grass grew, forever whispering the story of the mare who didn't forget. The sun set behind the Andes, casting the monument and cross into silhouette. A perfect hush settled on the estancia. For a moment, the wind lifted, and a swirl of dust danced where Noche once pawed the earth. The memoir's first edition, kept in a glass case in the ranch house, was opened to the page that read, "She dug until we saw." 3 simple words that held the weight of decades. The story had passed from a dirt hole to a printed page, but its truest form remained here, in the soil and the silence. No plaque could capture what a mare's hoof had uncovered. Not just a crime, but a family that had lost its soul. And in the quiet, if you listen long enough, you can almost hear the sound that started it all. A steady pawing, patient as time. The mare never forgot. And because of her, neither would the world. La yegua que no olvidó, the horse who refused to forget, and in doing so, taught a family how to remember. And so, under a vast blanket of stars, the estancia slept, the pasture finally whole, the silence no longer heavy but peaceful. The granite bore the names. But the true story was written in hoofprints long since filled by rain and grass. La yegua que no olvidó rested on every shelf, a testament to a truth unearthed by a creature who could not speak it, only dig it. And in the pasture, a new black mare grazed, drawn to the same spot by an ancient memory that flowed through the soil. She paused, ears pricked toward the ground, listening for a sound only horses could hear, the echo of a patient dig. The mare sighed, and the grass whispered back, a secret passed from root to root. The memoir's pages turned in the breeze, always opening to the last chapter, where the first line waited. The hole was exactly the same every morning, and Paul had filled it 63 times. But the truth, once dug, can never be filled again. It remains a hollow of light in the dark. La yegua que no olvidó. The mare who never forgot.